and this is, like I said, the third part of the collecting game series for the year 2022. In the Google Classroom, we are following this specific document here, which I put in the comments, and we are going to be from video 3, starting on step 2 of the adding control section. All right, so hopefully you're following along at this point, and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to jump over to construct, and as you can see, our event sheet has one specific line of code, and our layout has been completed. So once again, if you are following along, you need to have video 2 done in order for this video to specifically mean anything to you. So with that, not you, them. So without obviously further ado, let's continue with that. All right. So if you noticed, I'm asking in the instructions here for you to add a system tick, basically. Right. Every tick, a system operation, is going to rotate our enemy clockwise 1 degree. And the next thing, obviously, in the comments that rotate. Obviously, this is just a note of the video. So going in, what does that look like? Sure. Going over here, I have enemy rotate. I also have sign horizontal and then sign vertical. So if I move these in, they'll oscillate horizontal or vertical. And then this is an enemy specifically designed to rotate. So over in the event sheet, what we did at the end of video 2 was we added a system event. We called it every tick, and then we selected the enemy rotate sprite, and then we said rotate every 1 degree. So when we press play, enemy rotate every 1 degree is happening. This sign horizontal, sign vertical is happening automatically because of the behavior. The player has no controls right now. I can't move the player. And then the collectible is dead as well. So that's what we're going to be doing at this point. So we're going to go back and we're going to add touch to the layout. So this game specifically, if all of you play this on a smartphone, you should be able to touch the screen and then have the player go to where your finger is. The question is, how do we add that? So if you remember when we played, when we built Falling Spikes, we added the keyboard. We have to add touch. So all you have to do is double click on your layout and then type in touch, T-O-U, and then you'll get this. By adding the input code for touch, you now can call when things get touched, what do we do, okay? And if you look right here, it's added as a object. Just like the keyboard, it's an invisible object. It lets you detect when keys are pressed. This is going to allow you to detect when the screen is touched. It's going to give you an XY position, okay? So let's build that in, okay? So on the event sheet, we're going to add touch as the specific. So we're going to hit add. And then as you can see, we are going to add a touch event. So when the event touch has been activated, what do we want to do? We want to set the player's position. Okay, so if we do, let's see here, back this up. When touch, adds touch in so you're going to do, let's say here, is touching object player, and you're going to say done. So is touch touching player, we're going to set the player's X and Y position. So let's do, hold on, we're going to back this up. Why am I not doing this correctly? Hold on. Let's see here. Adds touch in touch. And then sets. Is in touch. Player. Set position. I'm going to reiterate what I'm doing right now. Just at this point, I'm just double checking to see if I'm doing this correctly. We're going to do touch.x touch.y. Hit done. Let's just see. Press play. Okay. It does work. There was a couple things I was unsure of beforehand, so if you were watching me do this obviously on the video, what I just did was correct, but I had some second thoughts about it before I verbalized it. So what I just did was I added, I'm going to rebuild this, I added a touch event, okay? And the specific event is in touch, meaning is the player touching the screen? And in this case, when we click the mouse button on the screen, that's touching. So if you can see my cursor on the left, as soon as I touch the screen, it puts the player to where I touch, because it gets the X and Y anytime I click the screen. All right? So if I just click and drag, you can wiggle it around. So what's actually happening is when I touch, I type is in touch, then it's the player, and then it's the question of setting the position. So I'm going to rebuild this again. So I'm going to hit add event just for fun. I'm going to delete this line of code because I already did it. I did touch, and then I do is in. So now we are going to see, are we actually touching at that time? And then the action is going to be specific to the player. So if you're touching, the touching behavior or the touching event is specific to the player. And the question is, what do we want the player to do when we touch? Well, we want it to set its position. So we just type here, set POS for position, and we're going to set the player's position. And then you're going to get this X and Y number. We need this to be abstract because this varies. This changes all the time, all right? Every time the player drags it, the X and Y's are different, and you're never going to know what those are. So we are going to type in, erase the 0 and type in touch. T-O-U-C-H, you will see touch. And then we're going to do touch.x. Touch.x means it's going to use the touch function to give you back the X value. And we're going to type touch.y for the next one. Touch.y. Press enter. If they look like this, you're in good shape. Now, of course, I have a duplicate set of code. I don't want that. But for you building it in this class, let me zoom this in a little bit so you can see. All right. This is one of the first or second times we've actually called an existing scenario, right? We're calling for the current X and the current Y to be used as the position of the player when the person touches the screen. Complicated, but if you do this enough, you start to realize it. And that's what gives us the now click and drag behavior. We don't have any collisions that are going on, but I can at least drag this, and I can't drag it outside. And does anybody know why I can't drag my player outside the layout? You guys can say it. Anybody? It has something to do with the behavior we added a couple videos ago. All right, if I click on this, let me show you. Behavior, bound to layout, keeps the player from dragging anything outside of the layout. So we added this in video 1 or 2. So when we play, we don't actually have any code that keeps me from dragging this. It's just a behavior. It doesn't really require any technical know-how. Just bound to layout, meaning don't leave the screen. Right? If I did, it would be way outside the screen otherwise. All right, I know I've been going a little bit slow. So at this point, we just added the player tied to touch.y and x. And now the player follows the mouse. On the layout, we are going to move the enemies off the screen. So you want to do this because we're going to have them randomly appear. So your enemies and game objects will appear at random location, and they're just going to kind of live up in this area. Okay? We're going to go over to the event sheet now, and we got to keep track of score. So let's go and right-click anywhere in the event sheet, gray space, and go add global variable. When you do that, you're going to give the name lowercase score. Lowercase score. Say OK, and then you'll have a score at the top. Right? After we're doing that, we're going to do players overlapping with a collectible. Let's see here. Add an event, global score. We did that. We need another event, and it's going to be when the player, so we have to do a player event. And we're going to say overlapping. Yeah, we're going to do player overlapping, not collision, overlapping. I think collision would work too. And what are we going to overlap? The collectible. All right? We're going to overlap the collectible. And that's the condition. So what do we want to happen? We want to destroy the collectible and we want to add 1 to the score. So the 2 actions for 1 condition. So we're going to add the action of system, add 2, because the computer's got to add something. We're going to add 1 to score. And then we're going to destroy the collectible. So we're going to click on collectible and then type destroy. All right? So I'm pretty sure I can destroy the collectible. Watch my mouse. If I just drag, it disappears. Of course I don't know what the score is because there's no label. The score went up by 1. I know it did, but the system is the only thing that knows, not the player. All right? So at this point, we're going to ignore adding the label and save that for another day. We are going to make a family of enemies. Okay? So go over to your layout and select on the right, select by right-clicking inside. Nope, that's not it either. Hold on, maybe I have to do this. Align, where did my family go? They moved it. Let's see, can I do enemy? Right-click. Yep, okay. Over here on the right of your project list, I want you to hold the control character, or the control key. Select enemy, rotate, hold control. Select sign horizontal and sign vertical. So these 3 things need to be held down with control. Then right-click on one of the 3 and go add to family, create new family. When you do that, you can just type enemies. And now you have a family of enemies. Okay? You can also right-click and hit Edit Family, and you can see what belongs to it. For some reason, my other ones didn't go in. So you just select them and press Add. Okay? So it's all done here. You can right-click on an object and add it to a family. You can right-click on a family and edit the family. And you can add and remove these when necessary. You'll find out why we're doing this later. But basically, families are like groups in Construct 3, okay? So if you've ever grouped in objects before in other programs, that's what they use families for here. And we can disable and enable an entire group of stuff, and it actually will make things easier for you with more complicated gaming. Alright, so we have overlapping and destroyed. We are going to add particles. We've never done particles before, and particles are really fun and satisfying. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the layout, and I want you to double click and type part, P-A-R-T. You will see particles that show up. This is where you're going to get explosions and fireworks and all kinds of liquid dust clouds and stuff like that, right? So we're going to click particles and hit insert and then click, and then you're going to be given your art editor, okay? At this point, you have to remember how to make sizes. Up here is how to make sizes. And I'm going to tell you right now the size is 10, 10. So, and then press enter. It's this tiny little thing. We're going to make this off-white. So click your paint bucket and then type 250, 250, 250, and then click in the square. All right. After that, you're going to close it. And you have this particle cone. It almost looks like a less than symbol with like a little square in the middle. That's a particle cone. Okay. Over here on the left, when you have it selected, you're going to rename particles white with a lowercase p. So take the p and change it lowercase and make it uppercase W right here. Particles white. That's its name. And when I refer to it when we code, we're going to use the word particle white. So if you don't follow with my names, it's going to get harder for you. Alright, so now that we've done particles, white, let's set up its properties. We have all kinds of properties we can change with particles. So under particles, we're going to set spray cone to 360. Okay, properties is here. Spray cone is here, and it's set initially to 60, so let's go 360. So it's going to spray all the way around, one big explosion. Right? If you're trying to show like velocity and momentum, you might want to have your cone show something different, but right now it's going to be exploding from the center, so 360 degrees we're going to have particles spray from. Okay, it's going to be set to a one shot. We aren't going to continuously spray. We're going to burst, and that's going to be it. Once it bursts, it's going to be over. Okay, the rate is going to be set to 200. So right here at 50, I believe this is the number of particles that actually come out. We're going to set it to 200. And then the speed is set to 200, which was default. Okay, so default was set. Rate needed to be changed. Spray cone needed to be 360. Type needed to be one shot. That's everything that we've done so far. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the size to 5. So these are big, I guess that's pixels, so it's 32 square pixel. We're going to make it 5 square pixels. Or 5 by 5, sorry, 25 square pixels. I'm guessing. And then we're going to do speed randomizer. We're going to set that to 50. So right here, speed randomizer, set that to 50. Yes, these are specifics. When you make your own game, you can tweak these and make them look the way you want. Right now, we are following someone else's design. So we're going to set the acceleration to negative 150. So negative 150 was my default, so it's probably not needed to be changed. And then destroy timer, hold on, destroyed timeout expired. Destroyed mode, timeout expired, right here. Destroyed mode, timeout expired. Lots of settings, I get that. So we're going to go back over to the event sheet now. And then we're going to add an event that when the collectible gets destroyed, we're going to collect the collectible spawns another object, such as the particle we just made, at the player layer's image point. So you'll see how we do this. So when it overlaps, we're going to add it to this, I believe, is overlapping. We're going to add one, we're going to destroy, we're going to create a particle, and it's going to show up, and it's going to do that one shot and then be gone. But it'll look like we blew it up. So at this point, collectible, so we want the collectible that gets destroyed to spawn another object. Okay, so let me just take a peek. Back in the event, spawn another object. What is it? You obviously have to choose particles white, because that's the object we are going to be generating at the time that it gets destroyed. And the question is where? It says player layer image point 0. So the only thing we need to do is type player layer up here in the layer, starting with quotations. If you don't start with quotations, it won't work. You will actually see your layers pop up. So I want you to double click the appropriate layer. It will type it correctly. Even if you know how to spell player layer, you could accidentally type it wrong. If you double click, you cannot accidentally type it wrong because it types it for you. So use the tools that are here to make your job easier, to eliminate mistakes. So at this point, if I say done, the only thing I want to do is before I want to have this happen first. So I'm going to add 1 to the score, I'm going to spawn my particles, and then I'm going to destroy it. Because the collectible is the thing that has to spawn it. If I destroy it before it creates it, I probably won't happen. So let's just see. So if I drag this and I hit this, boom, it's gone. The first particle that you see explode, that is my particle on the screen just hanging here. That's this thing. So if I don't want my player to see it, I'm just going to put it up out of the way. And these are all hanging here as things that will get called when the game happens. So now if I press play, I don't see the explosion happen. Well, I do a little bit here. But if I hit this, you can kind of do Control R, and you can see the particles happening. I could drag this further out of the way, just as long as it's off the viewport, right? Control R, boom, Control R. That's your particle, okay? So at this point, the player, to make the game more interesting, people like to see things moving on a regular basis. Every tick, we're going to rotate the player as well. So let's just go over to player. Let's type in rotate. I did clockwise for enemy. I'm going to do counterclockwise for the player. Why? Because it's different. It'll be more rewarding as the player. And we're going to change it 1 degree as well. And now the player should rotate simultaneously to the collectibles that we don't have coded yet. Okay? So at this point, we just completed. Let's just take a look at our steps now. And if I zoom out so you can kind of see where we are, in this video, and I'm going to stop at this point, this video consumed these steps here. Okay? Actually a few more than that. Right here. We did step 3 to 7. So the only thing we have to do now is spotting the enemies and keeping control of the score. Alright, so we're going to do that in the 4th video. I'm going to stop at this point. This one's gone on for 20 minutes. I apologize. This is a